Hey everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited for today's episode because we're talking about something that honestly feels unavoidable right now, and it's AI and marketing. Today, I'm joined by a special guest, Tina Lopez. Tina Lopez is a Chicago-based marketing automation consultant, Zapier Solutions partner, and founder of the program Automations Lab. She specializes in helping female founders, coaches, consultants, and small business owners use AI and automation to simplify their marketing so it runs without them having to push forward every day. Her tagline says it all, from invisible to inevitable. Welcome to the show. How are
Yeah,
you today?
I'm doing so good. I'm so excited to be on the show.
Great. So, what I especially love about today's conversation is that we're focusing kind of on marketing for millennial moms with side hustles. I know everyone this day and age always has to have a side hustle because of the economy and everything. So, I thought it would be amazing to have you on the show to kind of talk about how we can make life easier for ourselves as we juggle work, family, and creativity and trying to grow something in the middle of all the chaos. So, if you've ever felt overwhelmed trying to market yourself online, this episode is going to give you actionable tips so that you can literally start using them today. So, Tina, tell me a little bit about how you got started into AI and all of the things that you run. It sounds like you got a lot on your plate. So, tell me a little bit about your backstory.
Yeah, so I've had this business since 2019, and I think the one thing to mention is that your first business is never going to be your last business. It always evolves over the years. So I feel like the people that I serve and the clients that I serve are very much so former versions of myself in some capacity, right? So I used to be a coach, a consultant. I still am to some degree. And now I'm a service provider. I used to manage a team, all the things. And so I know that, like, when it comes to marketing yourself as a business, it can be one of those things that is required, but it can also feel very overwhelming simply because of the amount of platforms that you have to be on and the amount of content that you need to create. And so this really came full circle for me when I was like in my content creator era, I would describe best as. And I was the person who was like consistently creating content. I used to write blog articles on Medium. And the best thing that I knew is like, okay, if you want to get more traffic to your blog and all these things, you got to promote it. And I just realized like the repurposing element of having to take your content, repurpose it to a different platform, different formats, all the things was just a little bit too overwhelming for me. So I was like, we're in the 21st century. Like there has to be some tool or something out there. And then that's kind of where I really stumbled on automations, Zapier specifically. I always tell people that I was in automations before AI came on the block, and all of a sudden people know what automations are, which is really great. It makes my life a lot easier. But I always say like I'm an automations person first, and then I actually plug in AI to streamline things, whether it's thinking, reasoning, or creation, just because it does a really good job at that. So it's definitely been a journey.
That sounds awesome. So for people who don't aren't really familiar with automation and AI, can you kind of dumb it down a little bit and kind of explain like, if
Yeah.
you were marketing a product or something, like where do you start? What is all of this? Can you
Yeah.
explain it a little bit?
Yeah, I think I could do this in two parts. One, we're going to talk maybe a little bit like quickly on the differences of like what is all this terminology just so it makes sense. And then I think we could talk about like what is like the core things you need in order for your marketing to actually be good and not have it look like AI slop is the best way to describe it, right? And so like when I think about just like the AI landscape, I actually want you to think of like a pyramid, right? And so there's like three layers to this pyramid. On the bottom layer is chat, right? Everybody's somewhat familiar with chat, and that's why it's taking the largest portion of that pyramid, right? And so chat is basically you having access to a really smart brain that's trained on the internet's data, and you get to connect and conversate with it in natural language. So that's chat. Then we have automations, which is kind of the second layer of that pyramid. Automations, like I said, they were always there before actually AI came on the block. Automations in the simplest form just allows you to have one platform connect to another platform to have them talk to each other, right? Not
Okay.
everything that you need to do has to have AI on it. Majority of the time, it's just an automation of having one platform connect to other. For example, like your Gmail connect to Slack, right? They have automations to connect and have them speak to each other. Then we go on like the tippy top, which is agents. I feel like this kind of gets often confused a lot of times. But basically, the way that I describe agents is like it's a combination of both automations and chat in one. And so what that means is like you can speak to this really smart brain via a chat interface, and you can have this really smart brain and you can say to this chat interface and say, hey, I want you to send an email on my Gmail, and then make sure to send a Slack message as an example, right? And so what an agent does is it has that brain, that really smart brain access to help determine, oh, what are the steps that I need to take? But it also has that automation capabilities to then decide, oh, I actually need to connect to these platforms and do this and that and things like that. So I feel like agents is just like the top, like the very tippy top, where it combines again both automations and chat in general. Now, once we understand that, I think that's going to be really helpful for this next layer of like, okay, how does this apply to marketing, right? Well, a lot of times when I see people leverage AI or automations in marketing, really what they're doing, in my opinion, is they're leveraging chat a lot of times. You're having a conversation with chat, you have great access to the smart brain, but the reason why content oftentimes looks like slop or looks like terrible, in my opinion, is because this brain, yes, it has access to the internet's data and everything like that, but it doesn't have access to maybe your brand, your guidelines, your tones, right? And so when we think about chat or AI in general, if you don't want it to sound like slop and you want your marketing to actually be good, then you need to have taste. That's the thing that I think AI, in my opinion, is not doing a great job yet, right? But that's where like you can have your unique spin of it and your taste, right? So if you were working with me, I'd directly ask you and say like, okay, what are the words that you hate using? What are the words that you love using? What is your tonality? Are you direct? Are you soft? Are you a little bit more on the fluffy side? Are you a little bit more on like the straightforward side? Those are the things that are really going to help make your unique voice shine when you're leveraging AI and making sure that it actually sounds like you, because the way that you create content on social media should not be that different from the way that you actually speak in person, right? And so if you can get AI and train it into that level, and the way you train it truly is just like take all your best posts as an example and then be like, hey, I need you to plug it into chat and be like, I need you to model the way that I'm writing, analyze it, and help me train this AI, or give me a document that has like my guidelines as an example. If you're someone who's like brand new and is like, I don't have content, Tina, then I would actually just start talking to AI and just see what it picks up on. But I'd actually take it a step further and I would say like, oh, okay, like based on the way I'm speaking to you, what are the characters that you see in your favorite shows or in all the things that remind you a lot about me, as an example, right? And the good thing about that is when you say that, it will analyze your writing style and then it will pick up like a maybe character. So for example, I get when I like write, I get Mindy Calling from the Mindy Project, and I think I get like Ben Wyatt from Parks and Rec. That's the way that like I guess AI like described my way of writing and my way of speaking as an example. And what's great about that is like once when it assigns characters to the way that you're writing, well, now you actually have, again, access to the internet's data. The internet has so much information on Mindy Calling and Ben Wyatt to then be able to help you kind of create some hybrid version of what your voice could look like. I would only apply for that if you actually, again, like don't have those foundational brand pillars in place. The other piece of it is like, okay, if you want, so that's how it applies to like chat, right? And how to get chat to really much so like sound like you. Automations, kind of going on that pillar, is like this is where like you don't necessarily need to use AI to have automations, but automations is more like, oh, okay, like I have chat and let's just say I take the response and I put it into a Google Doc, right? I'm going to use an automation to see what's in that Google Doc. If anything is added, that will be a trigger to start the automation, right? And say, oh, okay, if there's this content in this Google Doc, I'm going to send it to LinkedIn. That's what an automation is, right? If we were to apply this with an agent mentality, right, then it would be like, okay, so I'm having chat, but then you have connectors in chat, which is again like the automation, connecting to different tools, right? then it would be like, oh, like, okay, I'm having this conversation with chat. It's creating a LinkedIn post for me. And then if it's connected and integrated, again, integrated means connected to LinkedIn, then it will actually just automatically post to LinkedIn within that chat. And you can trigger it via the way you're conversating with it. So that's just kind of like the different layers that I would describe with taking that pyramid and applying it to marketing. You just heard like the chat version, the automation version, and then the agent version. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. And so like when you're talking about these things, like what exactly is the AI? Like, are you using some kind of tool to like create like an avatar or something? You know what I'm saying? Like, cause I know there's a lot of like the AI programs where you can take a picture and it'll like make you a person and like do all of that stuff. Are you talking about that type of thing? Or are you talking about just like trying to help you create a script for your content?
I think the example that I just gave you is more on the copy, like the text, which is the script piece of it that informs your captions, that can inform like maybe the overlay text on like videos as an example. Like these are more text based. But if you did want to use avatars, I've actually been playing around with it. The thing that I would say is like, yes, you can create avatars to have it look like yourself and things like that, but you still need like a script to feed it,
Right. Right.
right? And so like this is why you need like leveraging those chat automations or agents, however way you go about it, right? Like if you can get your brand voice to sound like you with AI, then you could just basically say, hey, I need you to create a voice script for my avatar as an example. So at least when the avatar is speaking, it sounds like you.
Oh, interesting. I'm learning a lot today. Let's talk a little bit about the programs. So you've talked a little bit about, we can put it in ChatGPT or whatever. But like Zapier, for example, like I know that we went to Power Table Live, and that was like my biggest takeaway is because I've always tried to figure out how to automate it because there's, 12 different platforms. There's Threads, there's Twitter, there's just, well, X now. But all of the different platforms, and it's exhausting to sit there for 45 minutes and be like, okay, I'm going to post to Facebook, then I'm going to post Instagram, then I'm going to post TikTok, and da 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 da. And so to have that automation is really awesome. So do you want to talk a little bit about kind of those programs?
Yeah. And the one thing I would say is just to, cause like, I used to have a side hustle as well. And so I would say like, I'm going to give you tools. These are paid tools. You should definitely use them because, they save those 45 minutes times whatever times amount you're posting per week. Right. So when I think about, how do you take your marketing and how do you distribute it everywhere so you can go from invisible to inevitable, right? Like, I think the thing is like, you can leverage these tools. So I'll walk you through like the way that I approach content creation. So for me, I actually use Claude. I personally like Claude when it comes to content. It does a better job at sticking to my brand guidelines, making sure that my voice is to the T. And so what I really like about Claude actually is that they have an app. And so whenever I have like an idea that comes up, or if ever I want to like think through something, right? I actually just pull up my Claude app and I will start voice memoing and I would start talking and be like, oh, this is how I'm thinking about this, or I talk about an experience or whatever, right? And so I'd voice memo in a specific project. Project in Claude is the very similar way that I would describe it to like GPTs in ChatGPT, right? And so this project in Claude is trained on my brand guidelines in the way that I like to create content, all those things, and I'll have a conversation in my project. And then once when it's done and it's ready, what's cool about Claude, and I believe ChatGPT has this as well, is it has those connectors. So it has that agent-like capability, right? Where it can connect to different platforms. When Claude takes my voice memo and actually, creates the captions, creates the posts or whatever, it actually connects to my database. Just think of a database as like a really nice Google Sheet, right? In my opinion, my database is ran on Airtable. Airtable, I think, is only $20 a month, right? Like, it is the best thing that I love. I can't live without Airtable, right? And so basically, the reason why I put my content in a database is because your content is stuck in many different chats, right? And that is a little bit